Would you like to have more productive conversations with people who think differently than you or disagree with you? While many fear this is a futile endeavour these days, this next title may encourage you to persevere in your attempts to connect with others who hold what might seem to be intractable points of view. Welcome to Audiobook Reviews in 5. This is Jana, also known as Yana, and today I'm reviewing How to Have Impossible Conversations, a very practical guide written by Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay and read by Peter Boghossian. Peter Boghossian is a philosophy professor at Portland State University, and he's an international speaker for the Richard Dawkins Foundation for Reason and Science and the author of a manual for creating atheists. James Lindsay holds degrees in physics and mathematics with a doctorate in the latter, and he's authored Everybody is Wrong About God and ... Infinity plus God equals folly. Both authors were implicated, along with fellow academic Helen Pluckrose, in what's been called the Grievance Studies Affair, or the SoCal Squared scandal, which aimed to highlight what they regarded as poor scholarship in several academic fields. Over 2017 and 2018, their project entailed submitting hoax academic papers to academic journals in cultural, queer, race, gender, fat, and sexuality studies. And the goal here was to determine if these papers could pass through peer review and be accepted for publication. Several of the papers were subsequently published, and the authors claim that this helped prove their point. All of these details and background should make it clear that Boghossian and Lindsay hold public beliefs about atheism, and that comes through quite clearly in this audiobook, How to Have Impossible Conversations. In other words, these authors are not merely fascinated by the art or evolution of rhetoric in academic terms, they're highly motivated by their objectives to improve the quality of public discourse about specific topics. What impresses me most about the writing here is both authors readily admit to bungling or fumbling their way through public conversations over various topics on social media. And they give examples of their own struggles to hold more effective conversations. Boghossian advocates using the Socratic method in conversation, and his willingness to admit past mistakes or failures to have productive conversations, even with colleagues and friends, well, it's a refreshing opener to what otherwise might feel like a dry or even sanctimonious read or listen. Overall, this is a quick and easy listen for anyone struggling to keep conversations on track. But don't get me wrong, it's not a shortcut, and this is not going to help you quote-unquote win the internet. The problem as I see it is many of us believe we are reasonable, patient, and easy to communicate with. And yet, so often, we fail to connect, and so we blame our conversation partner without really examining and definitely not interrogating our own behaviors. Practicing the conversational techniques outlined here, it's essential. And yet, at the same time, that can make us pretty uncomfortable. If you have a tendency to get angry or shut down or get frustrated with folks who believe different things, this is going to be especially challenging. Some reviewers on Goodreads criticize this book as being common sense or even just basic. Yet, I'm willing to bet the vast majority of us are not able to practice this so-called common sense in a consistent way. As I mentioned, for example, many people struggle with anger while discussing perceived injustices, and unfortunately, they often direct that anger at their conversation partner, which tends to shut down communication. This audiobook also cites some of the conversational techniques outlined by Chris Voss in his book, Never Split the Difference, which I also reviewed and recommend. And this especially points to techniques such as mirroring or emotional labeling. And above all else, if you take just one thing away from this title, consider this question: how might your conversations change if you assumed your conversation partner had a positive intent and genuinely wanted to connect with you in a meaningful way? This theme surfaced in many ways throughout the audiobook, and it's worth considering. That's all for this episode of Audiobook Reviews in 5. Thanks for listening. If you've not yet done so, please subscribe to Audiobook Reviews in 5 on your favorite platform. By subscribing, you help increase the profile of this podcast and chances of other listeners like you finding it. I look forward to checking in with you all again soon. Please stay safe and be well.